Jung discovered a truth few people know. There are certain qualities society is quick to label as weaknesses, but in reality, they are signs that you belong to a sporadic group. Those who possess a psychological structure far beyond the majority. After decades of research, he coined the term differentiated consciousness, a state that fewer than 5% of people will ever experience. And here lies the paradox. You may have believed that you are too sensitive, too different, too difficult for anyone to truly understand. You've heard the same phrases repeated over and over. Stop overthinking. Why do you have to make things so complicated? To the point where sometimes you even begin to doubt yourself. But Jung proved the opposite. This very excess is the signal that you are operating on a deeper level, a place most people have never dared to step into. If you've ever sat in a noisy conversation and felt like a stranger, if you've ever forced a smile to hide the emptiness inside, if you've ever gone home drained not because of what happened, but because of everything you didn't say, then you know this feeling intimately. You've called it a flaw, a misfit. But Jung would call it a sign of a rare mind, an instinct so profound the world has not yet learned how to understand it. This video will help you uncover the signs of that rarity, not through dry theory, but through familiar experiences you've silently carried without ever having a name for them. Each sign will act like a mirror, showing you that you're not strange. You're simply different in a way most people haven't caught up with yet. And if you learn how to integrate it, this difference can become your strength. The very foundation that allows you to shape a life aligned with your deepest nature, instead of forever living as a pale imitation of someone else. But Jung also warned, every gift has a shadow. If it's not recognized and integrated, your difference will turn into a burden, a prison that leaves you exhausted and misunderstood. That is why you need to look directly at it now, before the unconscious dictates it to you as fate. And if you dare to stay with me until the end, the 8 signs that follow will help you realize you are not wrong, you are simply rare. And rare means carrying a greater responsibility to finally become yourself. There is a paradox that keeps repeating in your life. The harder you try to appear normal, the more abnormal you feel inside. You've heard the familiar phrases over and over. Don't be so sensitive. Just keep it simple. Stop making everything so complicated. And after hearing them enough, you start to believe that maybe there really is something wrong with you. But in truth, the very thing that makes you feel different is the same sign that you're operating in a way most people aren't used to. Think back to the very ordinary moments. When your friends easily enjoy lighthearted stories, you laugh along too. But inside you feel a quiet emptiness, as if you're standing outside the circle of joy. Or at work, when someone accepts an unfair decision without protest, you feel restless, but you stay silent, afraid of being seen as the one who disturbs the peace. You go home, not angry at anyone, but exhausted with yourself. Why can't I just be easy like them? This exhaustion isn't dramatic, but it lingers and clings to you. It's like carrying an invisible backpack, where day after day you stuff unsaid words and unacknowledged feelings. That backpack gets heavier with time, and you've grown so used to carrying it that you don't even notice how much it's draining you. Jung explained this with piercing clarity. You do not suffer because you are different. You suffer because you've been taught to view your difference through the eyes of the majority. When you use the crowd standard as the measure, of course, you will feel out of step. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. It only means the mold they handed you was never meant for you. The key is to redefine the problem. You are not too sensitive. You simply feel things others ignore. You are not overthinking. You just cannot stop at the surface. You are not difficult. You simply refuse to accept what feels false. Every trait that once made you feel misplaced when looked at closely is actually evidence that you carry a rare psychological structure. But if you don't understand this, you will keep spinning in the same old game, bending yourself to please others, then collapsing under the weight of having no space left for yourself. That loop only pulls you further away from your own inner voice. And one day, you may realize the most frightening truth of all. Not that others never understood you, but that you've slowly forgotten how to understand yourself. Perhaps you've often wondered, how do you know if you truly belong to the rare group Jung once described? The truth is, it doesn't reveal itself in loud declarations, but in the smallest details you live every day. Listen carefully and see if these 8 signs resonate within you. The first sign: depth of emotion. What others dismiss as a passing comment lingers with you for days. It's as if a single raindrop falling outside reverberates through your entire inner world. Emotions don't skim the surface. They pierce straight through. People may call you weak, but in truth, it's proof that your soul has a complex structure where both sorrow and joy carry messages. Jung once wrote, "The most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed." That wound is not your enemy. It is the doorway leading you into deeper understanding. The second sign: a curiosity that refuses to sleep. For you, everything demands a why. Why do we accept injustice? Why must we stay silent when we know the truth? Others shake their heads, telling you that you're overcomplicating things. But you know, false peace built on silence is its own kind of trap. You cannot stop at the surface. Your questions are instinct itself, urging you forward, pushing you beyond the places where the majority chooses to stop. And that is how the rare mind finds its own path. The third sign: independence born from wounds. You know what it means to be abandoned, to stand with no one at your side. Instead of drowning, you learn to rise. From there, you shape the ability to stand alone, not to appear strong, but because you realized that if your worth depends on others forever, you will never be free. Jung called this the first step of individuation, when you understand that solitude is no longer punishment but a foundation. The fourth sign: intuition as a sixth lens. You hear the falseness in "I'm fine." You see the fracture hidden in a smile. You read the silence between words. Others think you're imagining things, but your body knows it is real. This is not an illusion. It is the collective unconscious speaking to you in a language most cannot hear. That sensitivity exhausts you, but it is also the compass that keeps you from being trapped in shallow appearances. Pause. Take a breath. The first 4 signs already reveal that your difference is not a burden, but this is only half the story. The 5th sign: a hunger for meaning above all else. Others chase money, titles, applause. You feel hollow. For you, meaning is the only thing your heart nods to. You cannot live on empty shells because your psyche will not allow it. And this hunger has often led you to abandon what everyone wants, to wait for what everyone fears: the truth. The 6th sign: you are forced to keep leaving. A friendship, a job, a relationship, things that once mattered deeply. And then came the moment you knew you could not stay. Others accuse you of changing, but in reality, you simply cannot pretend to remain when your true self has already moved on. This is the cycle of death and rebirth, where every departure is a shedding of skin. It hurts, but it is proof that you are alive. The 7th sign: your presence alters a space. You don't need many words. Where you are, the atmosphere shifts. People come to you and share what they've never dared to say. They feel seen. This is a rare gift, but it is also a burden. Without boundaries, you risk becoming the vessel for the emotions of the world until you are emptied yourself. The eighth sign, a nameless calling. You can't define it, but you always sense that a purpose waits for you. It pushes you to go further, to do more, to live more truthfully. Jung called this the transcendent function, the voice of the soul longing for wholeness. Others cannot hear it, but you cannot ignore it. And when you dare to follow, you realize that the unease haunting you has been a map all along. If at least half of these signs strike a chord within you, stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" The real question is, do I have the courage to fully live this difference? Jung once said, "The evolution of the soul does not happen in a single event, but through many stages, and each stage demands a small death of the old ego." For rare minds, that journey tends to appear in sharp relief, and almost all of them pass through three distinct passages. Stage 1, the unconscious outsider. In this phase, you only know that you are different without understanding why. You grow up with a sense of dislocation, sitting among friends yet feeling far away, listening to familiar stories yet finding them meaningless. You try to imitate, to practice smiling at the right moment, to say the pleasant thing, hoping to fit in. The harder you try, the more exhausted you feel. Jung called this being swallowed by the persona, when you wear a mask to be accepted and lose the truth of who you are. Many people at this stage decide they are broken and carry that shame for a lifetime. Stage 2, the awakening soul. Something happens, a loss or a crisis, and you begin to realize that living as a counterfeit hurts more than being rejected. This is when you start turning inward and listening again to the voice you once buried. You recognize that sensitivity is not a burden, but an ability. You realize that solitude is not a sentence, but an opportunity to stand on your own feet. Yet this stage is turbulent, because when you reveal your real self, those accustomed to your previous version will react. They say you have changed, that you are difficult, even selfish, and you wrestle again between pleasing others or daring to move forward. This is the passage Jung called confronting the shadow, learning to look directly at the parts of yourself you once feared. Stage 3, individuated consciousness. If you are brave enough to pass through the upheaval, you arrive somewhere very different, a place where you can live truthfully without needing permission. You understand that not everyone will understand you, and you no longer treat that as a problem. You establish clear boundaries. You curate relationships that nourish you, and you decline whatever only makes you shrink. This is not rebellion, it is maturity. You stop seeking acceptance outside and begin seeking coherence within. Jung called this individuation, the state in which ego and shadow are reconciled, and you can show up whole as a unified being. What matters is this: no one gets to skip. You have to walk each stretch of the road, and sometimes circle back to relearn old lessons. But remember, every step forward, however small, is another piece of sovereignty reclaimed over the city within you. And wherever you are on this path, know this: fatigue is not proof that you are weak. It is a sign that you are changing stages. Jung once reminded us, every light casts its own shadow. Nowhere is this more true than with rare minds. The very qualities that make you different can become your strength. But if you fail to recognize them, they will quietly bind you. 3 common traps are the clearest proof of this. The first trap is the feeling of superiority. When you see deeper, When you understand more, it becomes dangerously easy to believe you are above others. But the truth is, depth does not make you higher. It only makes you different. If you allow the sense of superiority to guide you, you will build a fortress around yourself, only to discover you have locked yourself inside. That is not freedom. It is a gilded prison. The second trap is the illusion of salvation. You have become so accustomed to listening, to lifting others, that you begin to believe it is your duty to heal everyone. You carry other people's pain, stretching yourself thin until you collapse under the weight. But the truth is, no one gave you the role of savior, except the part of you that imagined it. Jung called this the shadow of empathy. When kindness is not paired with boundaries, it turns you into the victim of your own compassion. The third trap is the illusion of sacrifice. You may begin to believe that being rare means you are destined to suffer, that the price of depth is eternal loneliness, and so you chain yourself to the role of the martyr. But sacrifice is not your destiny. It is only a mistaken choice. When you equate difference with pain, you unknowingly turn your gift into a burden. What Jung wanted to emphasize is this: the shadow does not disappear simply because you deny it. On the contrary, it grows stronger the longer you refuse to face it. To integrate the shadow does not mean erasing it, but recognizing when you are falling into the trap and stopping before it consumes you. The true strength of a rare mind does not lie in how different it is, but in the clarity to live with that difference without being devoured by it. Jung once said, "We do not exist in a vacuum. Your very being is always shaped and tested in relationships." For a rare mind, relationships reveal differences even more clearly. You rarely meet just casual friends or coworkers. You often encounter three distinct types of people. The first type are the seekers of light. They are drawn to your honesty, your depth. They come to you to unburden themselves, to feel seen. And because of your empathy, you open your heart and listen. The danger here is that you become their endless source of energy. They are not truly seeking growth, only refuge. And if you do not learn to set boundaries, you will eventually drain yourself dry. The second type is the dimmers of light. They feel uneasy in your presence. When you live authentically, they feel like pretenders. When you ask questions, they feel exposed in their avoidance. Their natural reaction is to shrink you, to call you difficult, to label you as too much, even to make you the punchline. If you are not steady enough, you might believe them and return to rejecting yourself. But the truth is, their reaction says nothing about you. It only exposes their fear of facing reality. The third type, rarer still, are the mirrors of light. These are not people who drain you to fill their void, nor those who dim you to hide their fear. They stand beside you, reflect you, and walk with you into deeper ground. With them, you do not need defense, nor pretense. They are not afraid of your depth, because they themselves have walked into depth before. Such relationships are rare, but when they appear, they become sanctuaries, places where you finally feel you truly belong. The challenge is that many rare minds spend years unable to distinguish between these three types. You may give too much to the seekers of light, or shrink yourself before the dimmers of light, and in doing so, miss the chance to recognize the mirrors of light. Jung warned that failing to discern relationships is just as dangerous as failing to discern yourself. Remember, you do not need many connections. You need the right ones. And to find them, you must be willing to step away from spaces that only drain you, so that you have enough room left to recognize those who are truly meant to walk with you. By walking through this journey, perhaps you've realized the difference you once feared was never a punishment. It was proof that within you lies a rare kind of map. Jung called it differentiated consciousness, not because you are above others, but because you are called to go further than where most people stop. But remember, every light is followed by its shadow. If you refuse to acknowledge it, sensitivity can turn into fragility, curiosity into endless doubt, and intuition into obsession. The very gift you carry can become your prison if you are not awake enough to master it. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." The greatest privilege of a human life is not to resemble anyone else, but to have the courage to become yourself. Rare souls suffer not because they are weak, but because they have not yet found their why. When meaning ignites, everything that once made you feel too much suddenly becomes fuel. You no longer ask, "Why am I not like them?" but begin to ask, "How will I use this difference to truly live?" If you need an image to remember, picture yourself as a seed buried beneath barren soil. On the surface, others only see dry, cracked earth. They say, "There's nothing there." But inside, the seed still holds its full potential. It endures patiently, survives the darkness, and withstands both drought and storm. And one day, when the time is ripe, it tears through hardened ground and reaches the light. You are that seed. Your difference is not a flaw. It is unseen power waiting to break through. The only question is this: will you endure the darkness long enough to rise? Or will you believe the mocking voices of, "There's nothing there," and let yourself rot in the soil? No one else can answer this for you. The truth is, you are not strange. You are not too much. You simply carry a rhythm the majority has not yet learned to understand. And that is precisely why you are here. Let this sentence become your quiet vow every time you feel the urge to shrink just to please someone else. I am not too much. I am rare. I am the seed beneath the barren soil, and I will rise.